really does confuse me quite often to see so many people in the gaming industry not understand why so many customers and consumers really like Steam as their de facto place to buy and play the majority of their PC games. When you see what Steam has done with their refund policy, basically giving you all of your money back, even if you've played longer than 2 hours sometimes, is one of the main things overall. And one of the bigger things that's come into question recently was Steam's choice to apply AI labels and verification, signaling to the actual customer before they buy a game that, hey, if you're a developer and you use AI, you need to disclose it in your store page so customers know what's going on. And there's a huge conversation about AI in the gaming space as well. Granted, you're going to be seeing a lot of games use more AI in the future, but I've always felt like if you're going to be transparent about what's going on in your game and how it's being developed, people should know how you developed your game before they spend their hard-earned money on it, especially if they feel that AI is not good for them or they just don't want to consume products that were used with AI in the first place. The difference is, though, there is one major competitor to Steam that has basically done the opposite the entire time, and that is in fact Epic Games. And we've seen this before because clearly when Steam was talking about being anti-NFT, Epic Games turned around and said, we're pro-NFT, not realizing that being the complete opposite, the yin and yang to Steam, is not going to be the way to garner any sort of user base to your platform and storefront. Literally by going through and not only accepting NFTs in their own games, but also locking away exclusivity and paying for that exclusivity to drive people to their storefront in the first place. At the same time, trying to give away as many free games as possible there as well. But through all of that by what Tim Sweeney has done, throwing around millions in Fortnite money in every conceivable way, they still haven't been able to catch up to what Steam has been doing, or even the kind of marketplace Steam is right now. And to make things even worse, Tim Sweeney consistently keeps putting his foot in his mouth. According to Culture Crave on Twitter, Epic game boss Tim Sweeney thinks stores like Steam should stop labeling games as, quote, made with AI, saying, quote, it makes no sense for game stores where AI will be involved in nearly all future production. And here again is where I totally disagree with Tim Sweeney, even though I've disagreed with basically everything he's also said before. Remember that whole PS5 SSD thing? Yeah, I remember. Every customer and consumer in the video game space should be absolutely aware of what is being used to make their game, especially when they're spending their hard-earned money to in fact buy that game. If people do not want to buy games that are using generative AI, they should be inclined to know that this game either A, does in fact have AI, or it doesn't. That's how things should be. Clarity and information for customers and consumers has never been a bad thing. Literally sweeping it all away by saying, oh, everyone's gonna do it, therefore it's okay, is not the way things should be done. Customers and consumers should know exactly how their games are being made, where the AI is in fact being used, and they should make that decision based on their own criteria of whether or not they want to buy their game at all in the first place. That's really what I think Tim Sweeney and so many others do not understand what is in fact happening in the gaming space right now. Clarity and information should be completely required so the customer can make the best decision for themselves in the first place. If you've got a multi-billion-dollar corporation like Xbox and PlayStation making games with generative AI, firing all the employees afterwards, and then putting out nothing but slop in the first place, yeah, I'm gonna be pretty upset when they're asking for $70 fucking for that game. While at the same time, those exact same companies will turn around and say, oh, we need to increase the cost of video games, put microtransactions, put battle passes, and everything else in between to create more revenue for them in the first place, while also going through firing off every other kind of employee and having AI do the job for them. Microsoft's doing it themselves by 30% of Windows code is actually done by AI, and even at that space, they can't even get the goddamn operating system to work correctly. So what makes you think a game is going to be just fine for that as well, Tim? But the funny thing is, that's just what happened in that tweet from Culture Crave. People were in fact trying to defend AI usage in video games by saying the most possible. Take a look. Here's Yusuf Al-Tuki saying this. He's right. It's about the end product, not the tools that made the product. Slop exists with or without AI, and reviews exist to punish slop. But if the end product is good and uses AI, who cares? Like, imagine you had to list every tool you use to build your game. Here's the funny thing about that, Yusuf. Game developers already do in fact list every single tool that is used when they build their game. Every time you boot up a game right now especially, what's the first thing you see? Game was made with Havok. Game was made with SpeedTree. Game was made with QMod. You see every single kind of tool that was used inside of that game on those first splash screens when you boot that game up. What do you think those are? Just like fun pictures they wanted to put up in the beginning to make you wait a little bit before you press start for the menu? No, those are the tools that were used when the game was in fact being developed. They have to have an understanding knowing this is where I'm spending my money and what I'm putting my money into. You talk about slop being made, and that word being overused by basically everybody in the gaming space really has been getting a bit out of control, honestly. Just because something is made that you don't like it, it doesn't mean that it's actually slop in the first place. It just means you don't like it. But you see, there's going to be one part that I do agree with Yusuf on. AI-generated use does not mean the game is going to be immediately bad. Aha! That's where the fun comes in, and the actual understanding of where AI is in fact being used. Embark Studios is a great example. They made The Finals, and even on their Steam store page, you can clearly see the actual statement saying where AI was in fact being used on voiceovers. Embark Studios also made a little game called Arc Raiders that also uses AI content as well, and you can clearly see at the fact right there they are showing where AI was in fact used in development. Even though these games have had massive amounts of success, and even though they have used AI, you can clearly give the actual right to the customer and consumer to say, hey, we used AI, here's where we used it. You can choose whether or not you want to buy the title because of that, and that's perfectly fine to do. Just because it's going to be ubiquitous doesn't mean that you should completely ignore that idea in the first place. But there's going to be more to this as well, because we're going to see the exact tweet that Tim Sweeney said his response and go from there. Matt Workman on Twitter said this: Steam and all digital marketplaces need to drop the quote "made with AI" label. It doesn't matter anymore. With Tim Sweeney responding saying, agreed, the AI tag is relevant to art exhibits for authorship disclosure and to digital content licensing marketplaces where buyers need to understand the right situation. It makes no sense for game stores where AI will be involved in nearly all future production. You see, it's incredibly funny that Tim says that, because what you're seeing right now is a contradiction in his own ideas. When he talks about art exhibits and everything else, when you're applying to actual credit, that's going to be a big factor. If AI is being used in video games to create that kind of specific art, then the actual user and customer should be aware of what AI has actually done and where they've done it themselves in development. In fact, Tim Sweeney on his own even said this before about AI, where according to PC Gamer, he said this: Epic Games CEO says AI companies shouldn't be hoovering up everybody's art data. Tim Sweeney doesn't want to get in the way of AI experimentation, but doesn't approve of scraping art without permission either. And you see, that's why I'm so confused by Tim Sweeney's statements. He knows that AI is going to be used in game development, yet he wants to make sure that AI companies don't go around taking up everybody else's art without credit or even applying where that credit came from. But at the same time, he wants the AI tag to be removed by not providing any information to the customer and consumer. So what's the actual issue here? Why are we sitting here saying it's okay for one thing, but not okay for the other? That is a completely contradictory statement in the entire sense of the word, and not providing customers and consumers with the proper information of what is in fact happening. And what's even funnier about this entire thing too is that I pulled up Matt Workman's Twitter account, and in fact his own header on his bio is literally him saying Steam should remove the "made with AI" label, and his bio says this: game dev turned AI lobbyist, remove the "made with AI" label from all platforms, especially Steam, dispel the stigma of AI in game dev. When you want to talk about game slop like we saw with that dude Yusuf previously, this is what's going to enable game slop to be just pumped out consistently all over a platform and storefronts. We've seen this happen on YouTube on a consistent basis. We've seen this happen with basically everything where AI is in fact involved. People just trying to find every possible shortcut in either game development, content creation, or everything else to use AI and cut everything else out of the creative process and have that be the sole sole focus on how things get done. As someone like myself that uses AI as a tool in their live streams to enhance TTS, change my own voice, and use it as specific ways of having more engagement with the viewer, it's very different than trying to replace me as a streamer and content creator with AI completely. No, we're not going to pull a Kwebbelkop here. But that's what I can clearly see. People that want that AI tag removed are the ones trying to benefit the most from trying to pump out AI garbage slop content and not give credit to those artists where the AI was scraping from before, like Tim Sweeney even said on his own. But I think the funnier part about this is the hole that Tim Sweeney put himself into, yet consistently trying to dig himself out. Bfumo on Twitter quote tweeted Tim Sweeney, ratioing him completely, saying this: "No, Tim, the customers deserve to know," with a picture of Gabe Newell. Tim Sweeney responds saying, "Why stop at AI use? We could have mandatory disclosures for what shampoo brand the developers uses. Customers deserve to know, LOL." And this is why I feel Tim Sweeney is an actual 100%. The shampoo a developer uses has no impact or implication as to what's happening in the game development of its own. However, though, the tools they use do. Because if I see a game studio of 3 or 4 people saying, hey, we used AI and here's where we used it on their disclosure on Steam, I'd be far more lenient on that game itself and possibly even check it out if it looks kind of cool, more so than I would be if a company, let's say like Ubisoft, used AI, or PlayStation or Xbox, multi-billion and trillion-dollar corporations that can afford to pay those specific artists in the first place to go through and hire them and provide proper art for their games and even development. See the difference? Benji Game Dev on Twitter quote tweeted Tim Sweeney as well, saying this: "This heavily implies that Epic are now using AI coding tools for the latest updates to Unreal Engine. Therefore, according to Steam guidelines, any game built with Unreal Engine must declare the use of generative AI." Where Tim Sweeney responds saying, "Not true. Just hate to see Valve confiscate ever more opportunity from small developers by facilitating new categories, cancel campaigns, and review bombing. Steam used to just facilitate downloads. Then they foreclosed on payments. Then price competition. Then crypto. Now AI." And this is where I have seen Tim Sweeney say the most ridiculous things possible. He's still going, having this insane crash out about the entire thing. Ah, you mean a company putting the customer and consumer first is a bad thing? Oh my goodness, who could have ever possibly imagined that in the first place? Oh, we're not going to go ahead and use crypto and have every piece of money laundering possible happen in our entire player base? Ah yes, that's a horrible thing. Foreclose on payments? What the fuck are you even talking about, my boy? Price competition? Oh, you mean the fact that you actually have to work on your own storefront to provide proper usage of customers and consumers to go to your storefront in the first place, rather than just saying, oh, we're just gonna drop everything down in price and force you guys here as well? That, what you're trying to do and try to talk about is market manipulation, Timbo. You're just mad that you're getting outplayed in your own gaming space. And the funniest thing about all of that is you didn't in fact deny any use of generative AI inside of Unreal Engine 5. Which should kind of explain why UE5 games run like shit 90% of the fucking time. And even in your own ideas, you're actually completely wrong. Because when you look at, again, Embark Studios with The Finals and even Arc Raiders, both those games did not have any sort of massive downvoting campaign. Both games are incredibly successful, and both games use generative AI in their development. They were just clearly disclosed for the customer and consumer to make their own processes and ideas and purchases. It's kind of wild when you think about it, right? Give the customer the right information for your game and provide clarity, and then they can make the decision on whether or not they want to buy it. You, on the other hand, want to force the entire industry to do what you want to do. And that's the problem, Timbo. That's the real problem. AI is going to continue to be a hot button topic throughout game development and the gaming industry in the next coming years. Even though we're going to see more games using AI in their development, I think it's always incredibly important to know what actually is going to be impacted by AI and where it in fact was being used, especially if you have so many people on Steam and other places wanting to have that information for their own purchases of what they choose to buy. The thing is though, this tweet specifically really encapsulates why everybody is concerned about AI in the first place. Stormfall on Twitter said this: Nobody wants AI, but it will be forced down our throats anyways. They don't stop and question that it isn't wanted. The culture of games and art has been hijacked by gigacorps that don't care about art and don't care about what you want. The use of AI is nuanced. Did they use it to streamline optimization, or did they use it to replace real artists? They will use that undefined nuance as a shield to feed you AI-designed gameplay loops with AI-written stories designed to sell you AI skins for AI-created characters. Removing the disclosure will just cast a blindfold over the consumer's eyes, so billionaire Bill can up his stock prices because art is just business to them, and they will milk it until it's slop. And Stormfall is 100% correct. People and customers should know exactly where AI was in fact being used. That way they can make that correct decision. And she's also correct in the sense that companies will do everything they possibly can to provide the most minimal amount of work to then provide the most maximum amount of return. We saw the AI used in Call of Duty, which shouldn't have been used, that AI in the first place, to simply create artwork for banners, which really is kind of insane to see. For a $4 trillion corporation like Microsoft to be okay with that and then get called out but not provide information really is a massive problem. You're going to be seeing more companies try and use and obfuscate its usage of AI simply because it'll save them money. And again, there is in fact nuance to all of this. Where it's being used, how it's being used should be clearly conveyed to the actual customer and consumer before the purchase is even being made. That way they know and are ahead of the curve in saying, I choose not to participate, or it doesn't matter to me. And that's perfectly fine if somebody does want to participate in that because it's their money and they can choose to do so. However, though, they should be informed of why it's actually happening and what is inside that game in the first place. And I know AI is going to be coming for a lot of things in the future as well, especially not just in game development, but just in our entire life. The thing is, though, it's the insane usage of AI that is destroying a lot of the gaming industry. And no, I'm not being hyperbolic about that either. Recently, we saw NVIDIA basically tell all their board partners, hey, you're going to have to source your own VRAM because we're not going to give you any wafers that have it on there in the first place. So, ta-da, congrats. Now you got to deal with that problem yourselves. They're going to be giving their own RAM to actual OpenAI and other AI companies as well because they're paying top dollar for it. While we're seeing DRAM prices increase into the 200 to 300 percentile, while going around and seeing massive increases for the customer and consumer because we just simply can't afford that kind of price, seeing as how OpenAI and others are paying top dollar for RAM in general. And it's going to be happening to GPUs as well, which will then impact consoles, which will then impact everything else in the gaming industry and every other piece of electronic in the space in general for gaming overall. I can't wait to hear everybody say, step your game up, brokey. That 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM only costs you $250 when it should have been about $70. It really is so interesting and wild to see how people like Tim Sweeney are completely out of touch as to what people and consumers actually want and to understand from with their products in the gaming space. Going around and doing the exact opposite of what Valve and Steam does, trying to be the differentiator in the space, is doing nothing for them but providing them bad PR and not giving them the right sense of why people should in fact spend money on that storefront in general. And I guarantee you that at some point, that house of cards of Fortnite will in fact fall and Unreal Engine will have nothing else to stand its legs on. They won't fix their engine, so we have stutters all over the place. They're going around supporting NFTs, crypto, and everything else possible that has been known to be a complete and actual scam by doing the opposite of what Valve is doing. And they've still continued to this day to not even fix their storefront, provide a better user experience, or even UI in general, and are still trying to lock away exclusivity for their content, which really doesn't do them any favors, as we've seen right now that people just simply do not buy games on the Epic storefront. They wait for it to come onto Steam. So maybe Tim Sweeney, instead of trying to argue for AI and removing the actual notification of what customers should know, maybe you should take a page out of Valve's playbook instead. And I really wish other companies would too as well, because right now it looks like that Valve is the only one defending you as a customer and consumer. And that's not a good thing. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear what you have to say about this in the comments section down below. Do you disagree with Tim Sweeney? Do you agree? I want to hear what you guys have to say. If you want to see more of this kind of content, though, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy content, and my hot takes in the gaming industry, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 98K. $100K. And if you want Discord access or emotes during live streams, become a YouTube member. It's as low as $1. If you don't want to spend the buck, don't sweat it. Just come on down Saturday nights at 8:45 p.m. Eastern, live right here on this channel as I wear a banana suit and get insulted by 800 people with AITTS. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you gooners next time. Peace!